of the Lord.
I'm going to do my best here today. It's been a busy week, but Shabbat Shalom. Welcome, everyone. It's good to see Marvin, and good to see you, Ramon and Jose and Carl. What a blessing. Just thank you for making it down here today. So,
Amen.
Bless you. Everyone can sit. It's the Torah is in the ark, and we're ready to go here. But so the Parashah for today is Bimidbar. Does anybody know what that means? In the wilderness. Anybody ever be in the wilderness?
Yeah, I have.
I think we all have one time or another. It's quite an experience. So, verse 1, the Parashah goes to chapter 4:20. I'm going to try to keep this as simple as possible and not as filled with all kinds of different things. This basically, what we see Israel transitioning into here is we had the experience at Sinai. We had the giving of the tabernacle. We had the community coming together and coming together as one to build the tabernacle. And then God began to give directives of who fits where and when. And now here we are at a point where he's doing a census. He's assessing his evolution of what he wants in place for his people to walk out. It says that on the first day, the second month, in the second year, after they had left Egypt, take a census of the entire assembly of the people of Israel by clans and families. Anybody here like to take an accounting of where you're at with your resources, with whatever your plans are for the endeavor that you're pursuing? And in this case, the endeavor is God's establishing his kingdom. And he's making it known. Now just think about this. We're way forward in the whole plan of God's kingdom on the earth. But it might have been, or it probably was, quite a sight when the powers of darkness and the fallen ones observed the kingdom of God establishing itself on the earth in the people of Abraham. Very harrowing sight, because they knew God was moving, that he was pushing the scale forward to the day that he's going to deal with the rebellion and the disobedience, that there is a consequence. But now he focuses on the nation of Israel and the need for a military. He says, record the names of all men 20 years old and over who are subject to military service in Israel, and enumerate them. What's peculiar about enumerating them? Count every one. Don't miss any. Spot on. Every single one go through. Company by company. Why did God command Moses to count the people? Why do you think he commanded them to count the people?
To be ready for war.
To be ready for war. Okay, by different tribes and different roles. He assigned different tribes and different roles. Why do you need, it's the nation of Israel, why do you need different tribes and different roles? Did everybody do the same thing? Did everybody get their spears and, okay, we're ready? No. It was very, very specific and orderly. You see, what we can learn from this Parashah is that about our own lives and our relationships with God. We are the children of God. We are God's people. And in every community, in every geographic area, God has a purpose for that area. And He's calling upon His people who say they are with Him to build His kingdom. And He's waiting to see who responds, who answers the call. We're being called up. Now, as Marvin knows, having been a military man in the Navy, right? Back then, these men, they went on a moment's notice. They didn't even question it. They had such a fury and a fight to protect and guard this nation that they went and left everything. Are we willing to do that in the kingdom of God? Or do we like our comfort? So this was rather stirring to, there's a lot with doing a census. There's information that has to be gathered. And so the head of the tribes of the clans of the 12 tribes, Reuben, Shimon, Yehuda, Issachar, Zebulun, the children of Joseph, Ephraim and Manasseh, Benjamin, Dan, Asher, Gad, and Naphtali, the chiefs of their fathers' clans and heads of the thousands in Israel. They were to come together and state their genealogies by families and clans, and record the names of all those 20 years old and over, as well as their total number. You see, we need to know how many there are of us in our clan, in our house, that God is building. Because sooner or later, we're going to have to step into the conflict. We're going to have to bear arms in the spirit and come together as a unit in order to establish Yehovah's kingdom in the place He's called you to. So, you need to know who you are, where you're from, what your lineage is, where's your heart at. That was important to know so that you could be put in the right place, in the right tribe. Now, we all know that Yehuda, what was their role? Anybody know? What was the unique role of Yehuda? Chronicles, Kings. What did King David do? Yehudah was the tribe of praise and thanksgiving. What was the first thing they did when the battle came? They were the first ones to go out. Did they take their spears?
No. Yeah.
No. You know what they took?
Musical instruments.
Took their instruments. They went out and did exactly that. They worshiped and praised the Lord. And the Spirit of the Lord went ahead of them and annihilated the enemy. That was their nuclear, weapon.
Secret weapon.
Only under the direction of Yehovah. He gave them the go. There's many examples in the other books in the Tanakh where we see God directing King David and the army of Israel, knowing and even letting David know that there's an example in, I think it's Chronicles or Kings, where the prophet said to David, when you hear the armies, the rustling of the armies in the top of the trees, then go and engage the battle. Well, what was he hearing? The spiritual realm. He heard the armies of the gods of God of heaven. When he heard them wrestling, when he heard those armies wrestling, that was the signal to march and to overtake the enemy. So, as I was saying, we can learn through this and what God is doing here. I believe God wanted to show us His love and care for each individual. We need protection. See, by counting them, He demonstrated that every person matters. Every person has a unique soul and a unique mission within the context of the 20-year-olds and above. I believe it's 20 to 50. And so, every person has a unique soul and a unique mission. We need to know what that is. Judah's mission was to praise and worship Yehovah. In the battle. In the battle. We have the International House of Prayer. There's an image of praise and worship in the midst of the battle. At this time, what we're going through, we talk about Chronicles and those who humble themselves before the Lord and repent, and God says He'll restore your land. Well, that's true. I think we have an even equal calling, and that is, how many of you are praying for the evildoers? How many are you praying for the evildoers in the political realm, in the Department of Defense? I think we're missing something. Start praying for them and for God's will to be done over their lives, that the purpose for which God created them would come into view, and that they would repent, that they would surrender, that they would change their evil ways. Because, folks, the reality is, ours is to pray. God's is to execute.
Amen.
Ours is to lean on Him, to cry out to Him, so that He can move. What did Daniel do? He prayed. That released the heavenlies over the prince of Persia. And God sent forth his angels to deal with it. He'll do the same thing here. I think God wants to engage us in the battle that we're in today. We wrestle not against flesh and blood,
Amen.
but against power and principalities of darkness and spiritual wickedness in high places. We need to know that. And we need, as being accounted in the army of God, we need to have our ears to the ground, and we got to hear his voice, and we got to know when to respond and when to act. You see, each Jew holds, and I will say Gentile believer, who believes in the God of the Jews, Yehovah, holds a designated place within the cohesive structure of God's people, of the Jewish people. And so we have the 10 tribes. And now he starts giving them some clear direction in laying them out. The grand total of 20-year-olds and over eligible for military service in Israel was 500,000 young men. Marvin, do you remember how many we had in World War II?
Quite a few.
I'm sure it was up there. It says, now here's something unique. The Levites were excluded from that. Interesting. The Levites were excluded. I want you to think about who were the Levites, and then who were the Cohens. It's really important. Do not, in verse 49, do not include the clan of Levi when you take the census of the people of Israel. They had a very special responsibility. All the rest of Israel were to identify themselves by their banners. Now, isn't that interesting? In the military, they have companies by banners. Isn't that interesting? Where'd that come from? Where did that come from? See, the Levites were set apart. They were not counted. Okay? They were to be in charge of the tabernacle of the testimony, the equipment, and everything else connected with the tabernacle. And they were to carry the tabernacle and all its equipment and to serve in it and set up their camp around it. What kind of army would we have if God's dwelling place wasn't there? What kind of place? We'd be going on our own power and our own strength. We'd be commandeering the exercises and the defense on our own mindset, our own strategy. And in order to have the dwelling place of Yehovah there, we need people to take care of it, to set up camp. Because the tabernacle moved with the nation. And it was couched between the two I believe the two, and then two behind them, to protect them, to protect the dwelling place of Yehovah. When the tabernacle is to be moved onward, the Levites, who are to take it down and set it up in the new location, are the ones to do it. Now this is interesting. Anyone else who involves himself is to be put to death. Wow. Wow.
Holy.
What is that? How does that relate to last week's Parashah? Well, one of the key words last week was the word profane, which is
Unholy.
halal, which means to bore or to pierce. That's kind of a peculiar word in that in itself. It is much more broader than those two words. When you look at Hebrew words, they have many, many applications and many meanings that correlate with the situation that's being discussed. But you see, if it was like this, the Levites were given certain orders, certain instructions to do certain things accordingly as God had ordered. Okay? And then there were some things that the Kohanes, the line of Aaron, were given and only ordered to do, nobody else. So in essence, the Levites couldn't do all the things that the Kohanes did. They could not go into the Holy of Holies. They could not go into the holy place and perform certain things. They had clear-cut orders and instructions on what they could do. Equally as well, the tribes, all the other tribes, they had a different set of orders that God had laid out, that He expected them to do. And so basically what this is saying is, tribes, one of you just can't walk into the tabernacle and decide you're going to help. Oh, I just want to help. I'll come in and I'll help take out the garbage or something, or I'll remove all the remains of the sacrifice, the stuff that gets taken outside the camp. Oh, I'll take it out. No. God said that to do that, to enter in and do something that I haven't designated you for, you're profaning my ways. Okay? You are basically muddling the waters. Before you know it, nobody will know what they're supposed to do. Well, I thought, what's the name we can use? Yochanan from the tribe of Issachar was going to come and take the garbage out today. No, he's not supposed to. That's not for him. And so what I'm trying to point out is, I think it's really important that you have a clear, straight understanding of what God's call is on your life. Where do you belong? What has He ordered you to do? What has He designated you to do in the context of here and now, today, in your life? Because otherwise, you're profaning His name. It's like years ago, I had someone come and help me do something. I had a building that I was renovating. I told the person to go do A, and I left. I came back, he was doing B. I said, what are you doing B for? I don't need that done. I'm ripping those off and replacing them, and you just spent 3 hours working on something I don't even need done. So the project didn't move forward. So it's important to know what your calling is and what tribe you belong under. So the Levites were basically stationed around the tabernacle to protect it. You had the tribes of Yehuda, Issachar, and Zebulun. They camped on the east side toward the sunrise. Interesting. They were the first out when they moved. When the whole camp moved, they were the first ones to go out with Yehuda, Judah. Judah leading the way. Isn't that interesting? Is Yehuda, Yeshua, the tribe of Judah, King David, are they leading you out? Or are you leading out? Are you from the tribe of Dan that was the rear guard, the last tribe out, trying to run up front ahead of Yehuda? The second group out was Reuben, Shimon, and Gad. Then the tent of meeting went next. So you had 6 tribes out ahead. Now the tabernacle, the presence, the dwelling place of Yehovah. And they took the tent of meeting and they set it out. And the other camps were in front and behind. The fourth or the third group out, after the Levites had everything for the tabernacle moving, was Ephraim, Manasseh, and Benjamin. Isn't that interesting? Joseph loved Benjamin. And Benjamin was with Ephraim and Manasseh. I think that's cool. Doesn't that kind of say something? Joseph loved his little brother. And then lastly, the last tribes out were Dan, Asher, and Naphtali. In total, as I said before, 603,550 troops. And if you've been here several times, one of the things I keep pointing out that I think is important in our days, it says, but as Adonai ordered Moshe, the Levites were not counted with the rest of Israel. The people of Israel did everything Adonai had ordered Moshe. That's really important. We got to ask ourselves, are we doing everything that the Spirit of Yehovah has ordered us to do? Are we where we belong? Are we doing what we should be doing?
Amen.
Really important, because this is straight and clear. There's times when Israel rebels, as you all know, as we go along further on and even before the golden calf. But here's some points where he says, the people of Israel did everything Yehovah had ordered Moshe. furnishings of the tent of meeting, and to carry out all the duties of the people of Israel connected with the service of the tabernacle. Wow. Now, if you are familiar with the names of the Levite sons, there was Gershon, Echad, and Merari, and they all each had certain responsibilities. Again, the same thing. How do we apply this in the modern time, in our generation, according to Torah, is what I previously just said. The Gershonites, they knew, it was made clear that they were in charge of the tabernacle itself, the inner and outer coverings, the screen for the entrance of the tent of meeting, the curtains surrounding the courtyard, the screen for the entrance of the courtyard surrounding the tabernacle, and the altar, all the fixtures, ropes for these items. And they were the maintenance guys. That's what it says. And their maintenance. And the same applies for the group of Echad and Merari. And there was some even more really careful, actually Aaron had to be with, and Aaron's sons had to be with Kohath, with the Kohath clan, okay, because they were responsible for the ark, the table, the menorah, the altars, the utensils, the Kohanim use when they serve in the holy place, the curtain and everything involved in the maintenance of these things. Eleazar, the son of Aharon the Kohen, was first among the chiefs of the Levites and supervised those in charge of the holy place. Really important. So we can see, now, this is a huge company. Now, how does that translate over into the Gospels and the epistles? What does Paul basically say? Can you connect those two? He uses a different symbology that we can really relate to, because most people couldn't relate to the tabernacle and all the things. We can, somewhat. Well, what does Paul say? He says, we're one body. We all have a role. You don't have a liver, it doesn't want to be the liver, you got problems. You got a limb, and it doesn't want to be limbing around, and your limbs don't want to do what you want them to do, or are there to, carry out the things you need. You got a problem. Look, there's families like that. There's marriages like that. There's even synagogues and churches and groups of people like that. There's companies like that. It's our condition. We're disjointed. Paul talks about that many times.
Amen.
And I think that's a sign that we're looking for some kind of fulfillment that only we think we can produce, or that is just custom made for us, like so we arrive where we think we want to be. Like I said, it's not about where you want to be. It's not about you. It's about the kingdom of God. and knowing what it is that you were created for, to carry out, to accomplish in the kingdom of God for Yehovah, is all that matters in your life. Now certainly there's many things along the way that are just kind of part of the process of living and your day-to-day mundane life, but we really need to know that gift, that specialty that God's just ingrained into our essence, that will allow us to help promote and extend His kingdom. See, it also shows us that there's quite a diversity in the kingdom of God. You look at your body, the anatomy, it's terribly, incredibly complex and diverse. And if Paul uses that as an example of the body of Messiah, or the body of any really organization, it's a complicated thing. How much more do we need to be knuckled down and serious about knowing what it is God wants us to do where we're at? We basically scramble God's plans, and eventually He brings someone else that will fulfill the purpose. It's like on a job site, if a contractor doesn't do the job, get the job done right, doesn't go along with the plan, eventually they get another guy. That's the way it works. And the most important team that I could ever imagine being on would be the kingdom of God. So, another possible perspective is, you see, God wanted to teach us about the importance of our diversity in His kingdom and unity. He gave different tasks to different tribes here and to different individuals in the communities that they're in.
Mm-hmm.
But they all had to work together for the common good of the kingdom of God. As here, the Levites had to serve in the tabernacle, and the Kohathites had to carry the sacred vessels. The other tribes had to camp around the tabernacle and to protect it. Just think of that. Just think about that. All the other tribes were protecting God.
Amen.
God, does God need to be protected? No. He just wants us with Him to know that we're important, and that us being there in the natural realm makes people think twice about trying to disrupt the kingdom.
Amen.
So each tribe had its own flag and its own leader, but they all, this is what's important, they all followed the same Torah and the same God. Just think about how, really, just think right now. Just think how many different versions of God there is. Think about it. Just think about how many different versions of God man has made up in his mind, in his interpreting, in his understanding, in his experience. Do you think God wants us to necessarily see it that way? Or do you think He wants us to seek after the truth, to grow in knowledge and understanding, so that we all come closer in a unity of understanding who He is and who we are and what we're to do? We can apply these lessons to our own lives as well. We should remember, as here in the tabernacle, that we are all precious in God's eyes, and that He knows each of us by name. We should also remember that we are all part of a larger community, and that we have to respect and support each other. We should celebrate our differences. Thanks for being in the tribe of Dan. You guys are so exposed at the rear end of our company. You guys put yourself in danger for surprise attacks. Same thing in the body of Messiah, in a community. Some people aren't gifted in some areas and they don't see something coming. And you need to be there. Hey, I got my gifting in weather reports, and I can tell when the cloud mixes and the wind direction and everything is forming so that there could be a bad storm that could damage our community. We need to, pull down the hatches, close the windows. It's that simple of a thing, okay? That we are part of a larger community and we have to respect and support each other. We should celebrate our differences, but also cherish our common values and goals. As we've read Bimidbar, and as we see the example of the unity and the response of the children of Israel to do everything that God had ordered Moshe to do, let us thank God for giving us a place in His people and for guiding us through our journey in the wilderness of this shul, the wilderness of this community in Schnecksville, and let us pray that He will bring us safely to the promised land through the gifts that He's given us, and that we would know them and understand them and apply them so they're useful for His kingdom, where we will see His glory and His peace.
Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Glory to
Baruch
God.
Hashem.
Baruch Hashem.
Shabbat Shalom. Thank you.
Shabbat Shalom. You're welcome.
Hear now, Jacob my servant. Hear now, O Israel. It was I who made